Hey guys, welcome to Pokédex, a channel where I build decks for the Pokemon trading card game. A lot of you guys send me messages, both on Tumblr or YouTube, and also comments on my videos saying that you want to build the deck that I'm playing, but you don't have enough Shaymin. And Shaymin are really hard to come by these days. It's a really expensive card, both inside and outside the game, the online game. But what I always tell you guys is, it's a really hard card to replace. I mean, the effects is just so powerful that if you really want to build a competitive deck, you really want to get the Shaymins in there. Well, does that mean that all decks have to have Shaymin? I don't think that is true. In fact, the deck that I'm showing you guys right now plays 0 Shaymin, and I think it's one of the best decks in the format, believe it or not. I definitely think this deck is up there, tier 1 for sure. I would put it side by side with Manectric Regice. I think it has, I'd say, somewhat about 50% of win rate against Manectric builds. It also depends on the specifics on the build itself, of course. But it actually has a lot of game against the rogue decks and all other kinds of strategies. Like the Mienshao deck just gets wrecked by this. Rayquaza decks get destroyed, Vespiquen decks get destroyed, so I think this is one of the best positioned decks right now, at least before people start taking stuff against it, but until then I think this deck really has a wonderful chance of taking over the format. It's definitely my favorite deck right now, definitely the deck that I'm playing outside of the Pokemon trading card game online. So I took this for a spin last weekend on a local tournament with actually very good prizes, prize money and all that. So I took the 3rd or 4th place, so I topped 4th. I lost in the semis against Manectric, which was a very close match, and I definitely always felt like I had a chance of taking home the prize, but oh well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? But anyway, I think this is one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck right now, so I'm just going to dive right in. As you guys can see, this only plays 2 different Pokemon, it's Wobbuffet and Gengar, and we play 3 Gengar EX and 4 Wobbuffet. We really want to start with Wobbuffet. If we are going first, even if we start with Gengar, there's a really big chance that we can switch into Wobbuffet. We can find it and switch into it, but we play 3 Gengar and 4 Wobbuffet just to make sure that we can start with a Wobbuffet as many times as we can. We also play another pseudo Pokemon in the Robo Substitute, but luckily for us, if we start with it in our starting hand, and it's the only sort of Pokemon card, we take a mulligan, so we don't start with a Robo Substitute, which would be ruinous for us. Gengar is the main attacker of the deck. Dark Corridor is where we want to be, so we want to be attacking with dealing 60 plus a Muscle Band, that's 80, plus the Poison, it's 90 damage, so that's half of an EX's life. And the math really works out nicely for this deck, because even if we are facing a Mega Manectric, if they don't switch, we can just knock them out with a Wobbuffet the following turn, because that's 90 plus 10 extra damage if they pass the turn back without switching from the Poison. So they are at 100, and then if we have a Wobbuffet and you attack, you deal 110 damage. Which is enough to knock it out. So the math works out really nicely, even in that regard. And against decks that are not Mega Manectric, well, we just use Gengar over and over again, lock them out of the abilities, so they cannot Shaymin, which just, for a lot of decks right now, just locks them out completely. They play a lower count of supporters that draw cards, obviously, and Wobbuffet just makes it so that they kind of get really locked out of the game. Another thing that we are playing in this deck, just because we run so few Pokemon, we have space for a lot of cards like the Hammers, and this just makes it so that the opponent gets locked out even further. And what we are going for here is locking them out of card draw with Bite Barricade, and then locking them out of energy with the Hammers. Of course, Bite Barricade also locks them out of stuff like Bronzong's ability, so that means they cannot bring energy back. So that means that the Hammers are especially painful. So we're playing 4 Crushing Hammer and 2 Enhanced Hammer. Of course, Enhanced Hammer isn't perfect against all decks, but that's why we only play 2. There's another Hammer in here. It's a Zerosic, which is a supporter. It only hits special energy, but we can bring it back, so sometimes that's really good. Can also be used for another thing, which is to take the Spirit Link, for example, of a Pokemon or a Muscle Band, and just allow us to use the Head Ringer, which is sort of an hammer as well. We are playing 2 escape ropes and only 1 switch as far as switching card goes. We also have the Mystery Energy, which is hopefully going to be the most important card for us to switch out of a Wobbuffet, but sometimes we just Dark Corridor into a Wobbuffet if we have card draw in our hand, like a Sycamore, which just means that the next turn we can just find some sort of Mystery Energy, for example, even a double colorless that we could just discard and attack again with a Gengar, retreating into the Wobbuffet once again. The fact that we play trainers to allow us to switch, it's because we can grab them off the trainer's mail, and that just means that it's more cards that we can switch out of. Escape Rope is especially good in this deck because we are playing the Mystery Energy. We can just, I don't know, we have a Wobbuffet up there, and then we use the Escape Rope, force our opponent to just switch out into something that they don't really want, and we switch into something that has a Mystery Energy, and we can just switch back if we need to. So Escape Rope, really good. We just play 1 switch because there's times where we really don't want our opponent to switch. Already talked about the Robo-Sub. We have the 4 Trainer's Mail, really good card in here, mostly because we don't play Shaymin. So that means that we have to find ways to draw cards. So these Trainer's Mail find us our Professor Birches and our Sycamores, which we play 4 of each. Of course, they also find us the Hammers, the Robo-Subs, the switching cards, the Ultra Balls, which we play 3 of, and then we have the Via Seeker, which just grab us our Sycamores and Birches back. We also have 2 Lysander, really important card. For the tactical knockouts, we can just knock out the Pokemon that has the energy on, stuff like that, and keep our opponent off of their energy and off of their game. We have 4 Dimension Valley here. I have run 3 for the longest time, but I upped the count to 4 in the last tournament that I played because I was expecting a lot of Manectric decks, and I really wanted to counter the Rough Seas. I think it's really important that we do that. If they have a Rough Seas for a single turn, that's not the worst thing ever, but if left unchecked, the Rough Seas can just wreck our game and just send us back a lot of turns, and we don't want that. So we have a lot of Dimension Valleys. More important than cutting the attacks of our Pokemon on 1 colorless energy is the ability to trump our opponent's stadium, in this deck at least. Of course, just being able to attack with Wobbuffet with just 1 energy is just awesome. And of course also allows us to attack with the Gengar with 2 psychic energies instead of the double colorless, so that's also pretty cool. So I'm playing 4. Definitely see you guys cutting 1 of these for something other than the Dimension Valley if you're not playing against a lot of Manectric decks. But since Manectric is one of the best decks, if not the best deck right now, I think this card is really important. We are playing 3 Muscle Bands, also a very important card to stick on our Gengar, just so that we can hit those 90 damage, which just knockouts the Vespiquen, and just means a 2-hit KO on an EX. So I think that's pretty important to get there, Muscle Band. The Headringers, I already talked about them a little bit, but this is a very swingy card in that there's matchups where it just doesn't work at all. If the opponent just sticks their Spirit Links, or if they don't play EXs, Headringer is just useless. But actually, if the few times that we hit with a Headringer, it just destroys our opponents completely. If we are going first and they start with a Manectric and we Headringer that Manectric, oh my god, that's really good. You have no idea how good that is. Just nullifying one of their Pokemon, it's a dead bench space, it's a Pokemon that if they evolve, they have to lose a turn, it's terrible. So I think Headringer is a really strong card when it hits, when it sticks. So that's the reason why I'm playing 2. And of course it also combines really well with the Zerozik if the opponent just sticks the Muscle Band on the Pokemon, and you can actually use the Zerozik on that Spirit Link and just, or the Muscle Band, and just stick the Headringer in there instead. Another thing that the Headringer does really well if you stick it on a Shaymin, it means that the opponent cannot bring the Shaymin back with a single energy attachment with a DCE. So if you actually use a Headringer on a Shaymin, you can just Lysander it out and hit it with a Dark Corridor. That's 90 damage on the Shaymin, which means that if the opponent retreats, you can just use the first attack on the Gengar, which is Night Attack, and knock out the Shaymin anyways. And if they don't retreat, well, you just have your way anyway. So that works out really nicely, just making sure that the Shaymins cannot come back to your opponent's hand and healing off all the damage. As far as energy goes, we are playing the 4 Mystery Energy, one of the most important cards in this deck. It's actually the reason why I think this deck is so good, just because we can retreat from the Wobbuffet while having the energy there for using a Psychic Assault later. We can also retreat from the Gengars if we're not ready to attack, so it's a really good card. We really want to play the 4 of these. We're playing 3 special double colorless energy because they allow us to attack with Dark Corridor. Also, sometimes they allow us to retreat from the Wobbuffet, so they're never really dead. They're kind of like a switch sometimes, but mostly we just want to stick them on Gengar just so that we are able to attack even without a stadium. And then we have 3 basic Psychic Energy. We'd play more of the Mystery if we could, but since we can't, well, I guess we have to run with the basic Psychics. This is the deck. I'm really happy about this list. If I could maybe add 1 card, it would be the Ace Trainer. There were definitely a lot of games that I felt like in the tournament that I played that I felt like I needed the Ace Trainer really badly. I'd love to have it in my discard pile just so that I could VS Seeker for it. But since this deck does not play any toolbox effects like the Battle Compressors or anything like that, it wouldn't even be guaranteed that we would have the Ace Trainer. So I'm really happy with this list. I think it's really strong. I urge you guys to play it. It takes a little bit of time to know how to play this deck. There's some very hard decisions sometimes. You really have to conserve the most cards you can a lot of times. So it comes down to knowing when to Birch or when to Sycamore and when to just give up on the Wobbuffet plan and just start throwing Robo-Subs instead. So it's also, another very important thing is knowing when you can actually win by knocking out your opponent's Pokemon or when you should just stall, because this deck stalls really nicely. So sometimes we can force our opponent to deck themselves out. That happens a lot with this deck. That's something that I found out. And that's really cool because there are some games that seem unwinnable, but then the opponent just draws all the cards in their deck and they just lose. So that's also pretty cool. So you kind of have to know when you can actually knock out your opponent's Pokemon or when you just should be making their knockouts really hard and just stalling, so to speak. So that's the deck. Let's just go play a match and see how we fare. I'll see you guys in a minute. Here we are for our match, and we are playing against a Metal Psychic colorless deck. So I'm kind of thinking it's Metal Rayquaza. Okay, we are going first. That's perfect. And we take a mulligan. That kind of happens a little bit with this deck. We only play 7 basics, so it's bound to happen. And we start with a Wobbuffet, which is perfect. As I was saying, I'm kind of expecting Rayquaza Metal, because the Psychic can mean, yeah, it's an Aegislash, so which I think is going to get Edringer. Okay, I don't want any of these cards. As I was saying, the Psychic kind of means Upa, and that's a very good card against Wobbuffet, because the opponent can still draw. Actually, I'm not going to put this Gengar down. That would be a mistake, because my opponent could just Lysander it out. So I was just not really thinking about it. Glad I could just undo the benching of that Gengar. Our opponent puts a Skyfield down, and also a double colorless energy on that Aegislash. So hopefully this hammer that we have in hand hits. And okay, there's an Ultra Ball discarding a Metal Energy. And a Swablu, okay. Definitely Rayquaza Metal. What I'm thinking is I'm going to put the Stadium down. Firstly, because I don't want to draw it again off the Birch. And secondly, I think we can actually do that safely because we play 4 Stadiums. So because our opponent was the first to put the Stadium down, I think we can win the Stadium war that way. There's another Ultra Ball. Going for a Hoopa, okay. As I said, it's really good against Wobbuffet. Can just allow our opponent to draw cards anyways. So they can just grab 3 attackers. There's an Aegislash, or Mega Rayquaza, and a Rayquaza EX. Okay, can actually evolve this turn, and because he's not attacking anyways, he's got the Trainer's Mail for the Sycamore, which is really nice for him. He has card draw for next turn. Yeah, my opponent just evolves, and let's guess put these things down. Sorry, and yeah, the hammer hits, which is perfect. So let's just go for the Birch. Hopefully we get energy, which we do. There's a Psychic. Think I'm going to play the Trainer's Mail. Maybe we get, okay, there's a Muscle Band, which is not the worst, but if we got the Headringer, it would even be better. So I'm just passing the turn here. We have the escape rope for next turn, so we can escape rope into the Gengar, and actually the opponent will be forced to just offer us something other than the Aegislash that has the Headringer on, because it's pretty harmless at this point. We see a DCE on the benched Aegislash, and we see a Bronzong, which is kind of useless because the Wobbuffet is active right now. So our opponent evolves another Rayquaza, and there's a Skyfield. Okay. Losing our stadium is not the worst here. We're not attacking with a Wobbuffet. Ooh, we drew the Mystery Energy, so maybe we use that the following turn. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still going to shuffle it, so let's see. Could also draw into our stadium. Yeah, I think the double colorless energy going down is actually better, so I'll start with Escape Rope because I think that's the guaranteed thing that we are going to do this turn. Let's see what our opponent throws at us. Okay, so there's the Gengar, the Aegislash, which is actually okay. I'm going to play this thing. Okay, we actually only draw 4 cards, but one of them is a switch, so that's okay. We can just switch out of the Wobbuffet and just poison that Aegislash EX. The good news is that Wobbuffet can hit it with any energy because Bite Barricade cuts off the Aegislash's defensive ability. So we can attack with our Wobbuffet with any energy we want. But right now I just wanted to get some poison going, which means that the Aegislash is taking some little bit of damage that we can just increase with a Wobbuffet. So there's a VS Seeker for Sycamore. And there's an energy on the Aegislash, which is good for our opponent because he can just 2-hit KO one of our Wobbuffets, and there's a Sycamore. Oh, there's 3 VS Seekers in our opponent's discard pile. That's actually pretty good for us. Steel Shelter. Okay, so my opponent gets rid of the poison. That's annoying. I hope I get my stadium down next turn, and our Wobbuffet is hit for 60. Okay, we got the Mystery, which is pretty cool. We can just put it, I think, on the benched Wobbuffet. Yeah, because the one that is active has already taken some damage, so I'm just going to switch into the Gengar, and I think I'll Sycamore here. Okay, we got 2 hammers. Hopefully we can hit one of them. Nope. And nope. Okay. That happens sometimes. I don't know if I'll put this Robo Sub because my bench is getting pretty stuffed right now. And I kind of feel like, okay, this is an interesting decision. I think I'll need this Wobbuffet with the energy. So I don't want it to get hurt because I may need to hit the Aegislash twice, so I think I'll just give him the Wobbuffet that's hurt. And he's taking a knockout, and he's taking a prize, but I think we can just... Okay, Wobbuffet takes damage, so I think... Yeah, I promoted this Gengar, but I immediately regretted it because that was definitely a mistake. We got the Headringer for... Yeah, something. I don't know. Let's just put it on the Aegislash. That's active. My opponent needs to find another energy. Yeah, that was a mistake because I have to draw cards. I think it's worth it to just play the Sycamore and discard that DCE. Another hammer that fails. Wow, that's terrible for us. So I'm just going to Dark Corridor again. That's kind of bad. Yeah, that was a mistake. The thing is, I really should have gone with a Wobbuffet. If I decided that I didn't want to attack with it, I could have just retreated because there's a Mystery Energy on it. And the Gengar, the only chance that I could to retreat was either getting an item or just discarding an energy, which was not good either way. So yeah, that was definitely a mistake. My opponent plays a Birch and draws only 4. There's a Trainer's Mail for... If my opponent finds an energy, he's going to attack us. Which is unfortunate, because that means the Wobbuffet cannot 2-hit the Aegislash. And there's another DCE. Ugh. That's terrible. Yeah, we actually drew the Enhanced Hammer. That's perfect. Now we can just grab the Zerozic back. And just... yeah, unless my opponent has another DC in hand, we can actually 2-hit KO the Aegislash after all. So that's pretty cool. There's a Mega Turbo, which is good for our opponent. But I guess that's the card he drew, or else he would have just played it last turn. Yeah, so that's good news for us. We have this basic energy that I think I'm going to put on this other Wobbuffet. I think I'm going to need it. Let's think for a bit. Yeah, I think we can find other energy for the Gengar later. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm just going to put this energy on the bench Wobbuffet, and I'm going to use Birch Bird. I'm going to put the Gengar down first. Okay, we flip tails, but it's okay. We can just... Yeah, I'm not going... Okay, I'm going to attack with this Wobbuffet, because the other one has the mystery energy on, so I want to retreat with it, and this one will do just fine. And this way I think I'm totally protected against all the shenanigans my opponent could have done. And because I need this Trainer's Mail for card draw, I didn't play it this turn, because we will draw one card further. And actually it's a trainer, but imagine that the card was like an energy or something. We would have just saw that energy in the 4 cards that we would just looked at. So, okay, I don't want to face this Aegislash, so I'm going to play the Escape Rope. We can just retreat out of the Wobbuffet anyways, so... Opponent goes with a Bronzong. Yeah, I kind of feel like... I don't know, I think I'm going to play this thing here for sure, and now I can just get the Lysander and kill the Hoopa, because there's 2 prizes, and yeah, I think that's fine. We will draw the prizes, which is pretty cool. I don't think the opponent can knock out our Wobbuffet, but if he can, I think it's better to protect the one that has more HP, because we have the second mystery energy in our hand now. Okay, our opponent has an Aegislash. I kind of feel like my opponent's best chance right now is just to stall us to death and let us deck out. So I kind of have to be careful with that. So we are getting our second Gengar ready for combat here. But I'll play as few cards as I can. Okay, I can start hitting with a Wobbuffet. So I'm actually going to do that with this one, because I want to put the Muscle Band down for extra damage. And I didn't want to put the Muscle Band down on the Wobbuffet with the damage on it. So... This Aegislash is in danger. I mean, it's getting 10 damage, so it's 70 plus 80 next turn, because it's resistant to Psychic, which is a little annoying, but we do have the Muscle Band in there, so... It's 2 turns away. And I'm feeling pretty good right now, because I saw the AZ in my opponent's discard pile, but I also saw... Okay, where do I play this energy? If I play the energy at all, I could also discard this guy and just put another Wobbuffet down, but right now I think I'm just going to keep all my cards in my hand. Just Psychic Assault again. I'm feeling pretty well, because I saw the AZ in my opponent's discard pile, and I also saw 3 VS Seekers. So, okay, there's the last VS Seeker, and my opponent has to go for the AZ, or else this Aegislash is just dead, so my opponent does that. That's the right play for sure. We have 6 turns to end the game here, which I think are going to be enough. I honestly feel like that's going to be enough here. The Aegislash comes down again, but I think my opponent would just do better by just getting the... Okay, so I'm going to kill the Bronzong now by retreating with this Wobbuffet. And just using the Dark Corridor, I can... promote any guys, but I'm just going with this Wobbuffet, because you never know if Arch Stadium is getting trumped or not. If this Bronzong dies, it's actually taking 2 turns because of the resistance. That's kind of lame. Okay, there's the Bunnelby. I don't know if my opponent is playing that thing or not. But as I was saying, I think my opponent would just be better off just going with the Rayquazas and just retreating by discarding the energy. Because if I manage to kill this Bronzong, and it seems like we are doing that right now, I can just 2-shot that Bronzor on the bench. And even if my opponent evolves, that's a 3-hit KO, so with a Gengar anyways, and I think I have enough turns, so yeah, my opponent just goes with a Mega Rayquaza now, but kind of feel like it's too late. And he plays the Battle Compressor. Well, I guess he can. I guess he's a lot of cards ahead of me. Unless he plays a second AZ, I think he's in trouble. Because I'm just going to focus my Gengar's attacks on that Bronzor. Battle Compressor, hey? Okay. And I think our opponent is going to pass the turn here without doing anything else. We see 1, 2, 3 Bronzors and 3 double colorless energy on the discard pile, so I'm feeling pretty well about this. And the opponent is tanking a little bit. I don't really know what he's thinking about. Okay, it's our turn, so let's just retreat into the Gengar. And I'm using the Gengar that has the mystery energy so that I can retreat if I need to. But I just think this is game. Unless my opponent is playing a second AZ, which I'd be really surprised with. I think this is just it. I can just take the knockout anytime I want. Even if there was the 4th Bronzong, I could just kill it by taking an extra turn, so. And let's see what our opponent does. Even if there's the energy, it won't be enough to kill our Gengar. Okay, so we just won the game. Perfect. So as you see, this type of decks that rely a lot of, which is basically pretty much all decks that rely a lot of Pokemon abilities to draw cards and stuff like that, they have a really hard time against us. So that's one of the reasons I think that this deck is pretty good, is that it has a favorable matchup against almost all decks in the format, and it's actually a fair matchup against the other best deck, which is Manectric. It's kind of really split down the middle, I think. Manectric wins a lot of games, but we also do, so I think this is definitely one of the best choices of decks right now, and it's a deck that features 0 Shaymin EXs. So for all of you guys kind of playing on a budget, I think this deck is really inexpensive. The Gengars are really easy to come by. The Headringer is the other, I guess, expensive card in the deck. So I guess this is a really cheap deck, and it's actually one of the best decks there are. So that's all I have to say, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye!